Yo, what's up, y'all? Ruben Davis, Future Doc here, and I'm excited to announce that we've officially reached over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. And I just want to thank y'all so much for subscribing and tuning in and leaving your comments, letting me know how inspired and motivated you guys are by hearing my story and hearing my journey, because that's the whole reason that I created this channel, to support pre-meds and med students on their journeys to become doctors just like me. This journey isn't easy. And there's going to be some struggles and some failures along the way, but I'm hoping that my journey and my channel can help inspire you and give you some tips to keep pushing. All right. And in today's video, we're coming with some more tips on how you can ace your med school interviews. All right. So without further ado, let's get right into it. All right. So firstly, there are different types of interviews that you can have during your med school interviews. They could be virtual, they could be in person, or some sort of hybrid structure. All of my interviews were virtual because, I was still kind of in that COVID kind of, just a little bit after COVID kind of phase. So all of my interviews were virtual. And I think many interviews going forward will likely be virtual, or, have the hybrid option, just because it's simpler, it's cheaper, all those different types of things. But within that, you can have, a typical one-on-one type interviews. You can have MMIs, which stands for multiple mini interviews, where you have like a series of like 7-minute interviews with people. Or you can have a panel style interview where you're getting interviewed by multiple people at the same time. I had the MMI and the panel style when I went through the interview process. And I would say one isn't necessarily better than the other. I feel like there are positives and negatives to all the different types. But the tips that I'm going to go through in this video, I think will apply to whether you're virtual, in person, MMI, whatever. All of these tips will help you out as you prepare for your interviews. So firstly, as you might notice a theme in some of my videos, when it comes to stuff like this, the best thing you can do is practice. So getting in mock interviews with a current med student, if you know somebody in admissions who understands this, or really just even a family member, a friend, a cousin, anybody, doing mock interviews, and not just doing one, but doing multiple, 2, 3, 4 mock interviews, so that you can get comfortable with interviewing. You'll feel a lot more prepared, and like that you can do it. I know for me, I was feeling really nervous. Like I was like, what do I expect? All of these things until I did mock interviews. Some of the MD PhD students, when I was in my master's, were offering to do mock interviews for people, applying and going through the process. And I signed up for 3 of them. And every time I got more and more comfortable, and I felt more and more prepared. Okay. And during those interviews, tip number 2, those mock interviews, after you set those up, how do you use those? What's the best way to utilize that? And one of the tools that you can utilize to make your mock interviews even better is the Student Doctor Network. All right, so the Student Doctor Network is a website that lists a lot of the med schools on there, where students who've interviewed there, applied there, can give information. They give information about the interviews and stuff. So I use this during my mock interviews, where I went and I looked up, the schools that I was looking at, and they'll tell you like they ask these type of questions. They put you through these type of scenarios, so you can get an idea of what to expect from there, and then you can translate that into your mock interview. So if somebody lists out like, okay, they ask us these type of questions, they ask us, sometimes it's very specific, like they ask me this question, and a lot of times they don't really change it. I don't think the schools check Student Doctor Network and change what they're doing in the middle of the year. So the information is usually pretty accurate and pretty good. And I used it for mine too, and I found that it was actually very accurate based off of what they do. And so you give that information to whoever's going to be doing your mock interview, and then they're able to better create a scenario that mimics what you're going to experience during your interview. All right. Next, make sure you're doing your research. Okay. You should be knowledgeable about the school that you're applying to. You don't need to know the entire history of the school, but definitely know at least 1 or 2 programs that you like at the school. For example, if they have a clinic that students are allowed to go to do, shadowing hours, to do, physical exams, all that type of stuff. If they have a clinic like that, have that in your back pocket. If they have different service opportunities, if there's research, whatever it is, Be knowledgeable about at least 1 or 2 programs at the school so that you can reference it in your interview so that they know like, oh, this person has done their research. They seem interested because they're more likely to accept you. Like, let's say it's a toss-up between you and somebody else. They're more likely to lean towards you because they're like, well, this student, I feel as though they actually really want to be here more because they knew information about the school. They knew about programs. They knew about these, and those are things that are memorable when you're able to say like, oh yeah, I knew this program, blah, blah, they ask a question and you bring up the program, because one of the questions they might ask you is, so why us? Why X school? And one of the reasons you can give to that answer is, well, I really love you guys' mission. The way you describe, giving back. And I love the programs that you use to implement your mission type, and then you kind of take it from there and, do all your wordsmithing. But you can't do that if you're not knowledgeable about the school, right? Next tip, try to find ways to connect with the interviews. And you might think that might be a little bit harder virtually, but there's still ways to do it. For example, one way to do that is when you first get into the room or, whether it's virtual or in person, they might ask you, they might not just go straight into questions. They're more likely to ask you like, hey, how you doing? How's your day? Blah, blah. And if they don't, you take the initiative and ask like, hey, how's your day going? How's your weekend going? That kind of breaks down the ice, right? And it connects you two. And it's not just like, oh, I'm just here for this interview. Like, no, it makes you feel like more like a person. It makes them feel more like a person, right? But let's say they ask you, right? How are you doing? How was your weekend or whatever, something like that. And you could say something, your answer shouldn't just be, oh, I'm doing well. No, put a little piece of yourself in that answer. For example, how you doing? I'm like, you know what? I'm doing fantastic. Let's say it's on Monday or something, Yesterday, Sunday, my Commanders, they swept the Seahawks. They just killed them. I'm feeling great. I'm excited. I feel prepared for this interview. I'm having a good time, Now that answer tells them a little bit about you. Okay, you like football. Now, if your interviewer likes football, maybe y'all end up having a conversation about football. Now they're connected. Maybe they're a Commanders fan like you are. Maybe even if they're a Cowboys fan, y'all on opposite sides of the spectrum, but it's still a point of connection because it's like, I'm passionate about football. You know what I'm saying? And you can do that in various ways. It's like, maybe it's not football. It's like, I'm doing great. This weekend or yesterday, whatever, I went for a hike and I was out in nature. That tells them something about you and they can ask you questions about that. They'll want to follow up. And I'm telling you, when it comes to interviews, you got to understand that you've already proven statistic-wise, like you have the stats. You got the GPA, you got whatever. They already said, okay, even if you feel like your stats are low, whatever, you've already passed that part. Now you're in person. Now they want to know who you are. So you want to make sure, and this is actually another one of my tips, make sure that you're putting yourself in your answers, right? So when you're answering questions, make sure every answer you give includes a little bit about yourself, because they shouldn't walk away from this interview just feeling like, man, they just gave generic answers. I don't really know anything about them. No, they should be like, wow, I know where this person is from. I know what they're about. I know what they stand for. I know what makes them feel, what makes them wake up at night. I know why they want to be a doctor. Those kinds of things. So you got to make sure you're including a bit of yourself in every answer, even in the small questions of like, how are you? Put a little bit of yourself in there. And that's how you set yourself apart from everybody else. Everybody else is gonna be like, well, what do they want to hear? Everybody's gonna be thinking like, I need to give this real technical answer, this sort of CP generic answer, when no, you just need to be yourself. And that's another tip. That's another tip of mine. Just be yourself and make sure you showcase yourself. Don't just tell them who you are, show them who you are. Whenever you have the opportunity, here's another tip. I'm just kind of rambling them off right now because they all kind of so, into each other. Whenever you have an opportunity, you should be telling a story, include a story about it. Back when I was younger, my mom, this, that, and the third. People remember stories, people connect with stories. So don't just rattle off, generic answers. Try not to be boring and bland. Try to be creative and be yourself and put yourself in your answers, all right? At the end of your interviews, there's gonna be an opportunity for you to ask questions. You should have, whether it's written down in the back of your mind, whatever, you should have at least 3 questions that you're going to ask, okay? 3 questions. It could be about anything. I recommend that at least one of those questions it's specifically about your interviewer. Ask them about themselves. If y'all were into conversation and y'all were talking about some different things, let it feel conversational. Ask them, like if y'all are talking about healthcare or something. They ask you a question about healthcare. How do you feel about the current state of healthcare in America? Blah, blah, blah. Ask them about their opinion, or ask them, how has it affected you as a doctor? Maybe y'all get on the topic of abortion or something. I don't know. That would be that would be crazy. But if you did, but try to find ways as you're thinking to ask them about themselves when you ask questions. But other than that, also ask at least 2 other questions that's just about the school. How do students feel about X? What is the student-teacher relationship like? Do you then ask them directly if you're not, whether it's a student or a professor that's interviewed or an admissions person, ask them do you have a relationship with your teachers? Do you have a relationship with your students? What does that look like? What does research look like here at this institution? How easy is it for someone like me, or as for a student of M1, whatever, to get research? Ask those kinds of questions. I saw on the website that you guys have this program. Could you tell me a little bit more about it? What are students' engagement with this? What is service like here? Those are some great questions that you can ask at the end of your interview that engages them, lets you know that you're really interested, that you just want to know. And it also really just gives you good information about whether you like the school or not. Is this the school for me based off their answers? Because yes, they're interviewing you, but you're kind of interviewing them as well. Especially, you got to have the faith that I'm going to get in multiple places and I'm going to be able to choose. So, this is your opportunity to really get more information about the schools that can potentially have you. A good question to ask too is about their remediation policy. What happens if I'm struggling? Are there any systems in place to support me through my struggles? What is tutoring like? What are these things like? Those are really important questions that you can ask in your interviews that can really show you yeah, I definitely don't want to go here. But it also shows them wow, this person is super thoughtful. I really like this question. Those are the memorable things that'll help you ace these interviews, y'all. I'm just giving out this game, okay? I'm giving out this game, all right? If y'all follow these tips, y'all definitely gonna do well in your interviews. After you've done all these tips, after you've completed your interview, feel free to send a follow-up email. Now, you might have to send that email to admissions because you don't have the direct contact of the people that interviewed you. But once it's over, try to write their names down, and you can send an email to admissions, say, hey, I just wanted to let my interviewer know that I really appreciate, something, whatever. You can say, thank them for their time. Just follow up. It can bring your application up to the top. They might even directly connect you with the person that interviewed you, and that, maybe starts to cultivate a relationship with that person. You never know how those type of things play out. You miss all the shots you don't take. So that's one of those shots that you could just take. They might not respond. They might respond. The message people might pass that along, that information. Because a lot of these interviews are very conversational. So let's say y'all talked about a book or something like that, and y'all really connected on something. You can have a follow-up email about whatever y'all connected on, whatever topic y'all talked about. Maybe some statistics on something y'all was talking about. Who knows? Whatever it is, you'll know what it is. You'll know what that is when you have your interview or not. But continuing with the high-level thoughts, practice, prepare, okay? Connect. Connection is really big. Make sure you find ways to connect. Be personable with your interviewers, okay? Because a lot of times they'll have students involved in these interviews, and the students, if they feel comfortable with you, that goes a long way. If the professors feel comfortable with you, that goes a long way, because what they're looking for is, what can you contribute to this class? What can you contribute to the school? Are you somebody whose personality, whose thoughts and ideas we want here? That's what they're looking for in these interviews. So make sure that shines through. Make sure your personality and everything shines through. Who you are comes through, all right? So prepare, connect, and then follow up. All right, those are the big 3 things you should take away from this video. All right, with that being said, thank you guys for watching. I hope you found these tips useful. If you have any tips for interviewing that you'd like to share with the community, make sure you leave those in the comments, all right? And if you aren't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell next to the subscribe button to get notifications whenever I post a video. All right, make sure you like this video. It helps me out in the algorithm. Don't cost you nothing. All right, thank you guys again for the 1,000 subscribers. Thank you for watching. Future Doc out.